Can we get a roll call?
Sure, roll call. If I go out of order, I apologize. EJ is not here. Jeff Vitale, Robert Brocato, Louis Tedisco, Woody Dawson, myself, John Hilsinger, Anita Blake, Casey Downs, John Carderas, Sean Strollo, Matt Bowman. And we have a quorum.
Okay, Michael, we can do 1 and 2 together. Okay. Tom's going to do the call.
All right. We're going to do 1 and 2 together. Number 1, application for special permit on behalf of Serafino Calafiore, PDS Engineering and Construction applicant. Applicant is requesting special permit pursuant to Section 30, Schedule A, number 44, for an auto wash at the property located at 980 South Main Street, Assessor's Map 78, Lot 162, Zone C3. Number 2, application for the site plan approval on behalf of Serafino Calafiore, PDS Engineering and Construction, Inc. Applicant is requesting a site plan approval for the auto wash at the property located at 980 South Main Street, Assessor's Map 78, Lot 162, Zone C3, excuse me.
Okay. Representing the applicant, please give your name and your address.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commission members. For the record, my name is Stephen Judas. I'm with the office of Harry E. Cole & Son, located at 876 South Main Street in Plantsville, here tonight on behalf of the applicant. I think these were submitted. This is the affidavit and the mailing certifications, but I will give those to the planner. I just want to thank Mike for getting the screen up for me. I guess I was unprepared for class today. I didn't bring a board, so I thank you, Mike, for getting that done. Tonight, we're here on behalf of property located at 980 South Main Street. It's a 1.06 acre parcel. It's Assessor's Map 78, Lot 162. It's a C3 zone. It's currently has an unoccupied fast food restaurant on site with a drive-through. It's a 3,618 square foot building existing. It's abutted on South Main Street to the west, the Mill River to the east, and Mansion Road to the north, and another commercial property to our south. There are 2 existing curb cuts on the property that we intend to maintain, and a paved area, building, and so on, everything that you would normally find with a fast food facility. We are proposing a 3,500 square foot auto wash building. This building would connect to the existing sewer and water connections on site. We have worked pretty hard to keep the proposed limits of construction within the existing limits of the parking lot. So the existing parking lot that's there, I don't know if the laser pointer will show, but the existing parking lot is what we held for our proposed activity. So we're not expanding this footprint any further than what's already on site from a pavement perspective. There are no changes in floodplain elevations or limits, no impact to the wetland areas around us, and no additional land clearing proposed for our activity. We are proposing an oil water separator for the facility and 16 vacuum spaces to the rear and side of the building. And we have 6 parking spaces for employees and visitors to the site. We have a queuing lane through the front of the property. The site is, even though we have 2 directional curb cuts, the general flow through the site is 1 directional clockwise through the, counterclockwise through the building, through the site. The front yard requirements in this zone are 50 feet. The existing building was at 39. We're proposing to move this building back to a front yard setback of 54 feet. The side yard requirements, I'm sure you know, is 15. This property to the north was 78 feet. We are proposing to be a little closer at 55 feet on the north side, and the south side was 73 for the existing building. Our proposed building is 68 feet from the side yard. On the south, the rear yard setback is 40 feet. The existing building was at 50, and we're proposing an 81-foot setback. So we've brought the building further away from the river and further away from the road, but we've expanded it a little bit to the north and south to the side yards. Parking spaces required. 10 spaces technically required. With our vacuum bays and our visitor spaces, we have 22 spaces proposed for the site. We've submitted the plans. We've received comments from staff. We've made changes, and we did get approval from the WPCA and from the Inland Wetland Commission last week. So that pretty much covers our proposal for the site. And if you have any questions for me, I'd be more than happy to answer them for you.
Yeah, I guess I'll go first.
Sure.
Can you talk to us about the queue? You have 14 cars showing on the map.
Yes.
What size cars were used? What's the spacing between the cars that's used for the determination?
We used basic an 18-foot as your typical parking space. That's kind of what we figure for a parking space. I mean, for a vehicle when we're laying this out. We anticipate under extreme conditions we could fit a few more vehicles right in the entranceway if need be, but I don't think that that would be necessary under normal operating.
So when you say you use the 18 feet for a car,
Yep.
What's the spacing in between them?
They're pretty close. They're a couple feet apart, bumper to bumper. Yeah.
Okay.
Front to back, and then we have the vehicles double stacked side to side as well.
I do have concerns about the queue. When we approved Starbucks, we had specialists, engineers, everybody telling us, "Yep, more than enough for the queue. You're never gonna have a problem." And a couple years later, it backs out onto Route 10. So, do you have an expert, or who did this calculation?
We did. We looked at the site what the fast food uses would be for queuing, and the car wash queuing is actually a reduction in peak trips over the existing use. So that's where we came up with the numbers that we had and the requirement that we proposed on the site.
Well, I asked for two reasons, because of Starbucks,
Yep.
and then also I was down at Splash Car Wash, and they had 18 cars in queue. I know that because I was the 18th plus whatever they had in the building. So I'm concerned about overflow going out into Route 10. And I'm sorry, the entrance is going to be right there too. So when they're taking that left, they're also going to be blocking somebody from coming in.
I guess I understand it from your experiences. I don't have a great response for you, to be honest with you, other than with what we proposed. We were looking at the peak hours for the fast food and the proposed car wash peak hours, and that's how we generated this proposal. I mean, we probably could have squeaked more cars in there if I needed to, but we tried to generate a realistic proposal as to what the site.
How could you squeeze more cars in?
Excuse me?
How could you squeeze more cars
Well,
in?
if I push them further together, if you look at the sketch, you can see them on that sketch, but there are some gaps with vehicles. It's possible we could squeeze more vehicles into that lane. Could I get to 18? We feel like we could make 18 if you use the entrance.
But again, that's assuming that somebody's going to go bumper to bumper and not the normal distance that people like having between themselves.
When I'm in the car wash, it feels like people are right on behind me and right in front of me. I don't know what your experiences are, but we can take another look at the queuing if that's a major concern. We can definitely look into that deeper.
Yeah, I have the same concerns, and you look at the other car wash in town. If it does get overloaded, it's in its own. It's contained to its own parking lot. If you look at, I think of like Chick-fil-A in Wallingford, they've got double going. Again, if it backs up or gets crazy, it's in their own parking lot. The problem with this is if it gets busy, you're in the middle of Route 10. And then the other problem is you can't get any cars. Well, I guess there's another curb cut they can go around, but I could see it very easily backing up on the Route 10. As somebody who lives right there, yeah, and that I drive by that spot 100 times a day, which thank you for, applying and developing the property. But I just, I got caught up in Starbucks traffic not too long ago and wasn't happy. So I don't want to see the same problem here. And of course, the operator of the car wash is obviously not going to be happy, as well as the residents and everything else.
Yeah, we were trying to keep the vacuums to the backside of the building, and I think that's what pushed our queuing lane to the front. Again, from an aesthetic perspective, we thought that was a better approach, and that would be more supportive than having all the vacuums out on the site. If we reversed it, we may be able to pick up more cars, but we can definitely talk to a traffic expert about that and see if we can get you a better feel for what's expected.
I know you guys did a lot of work on that plan, and I know you don't want to come here and hear us say do something different, but it's the harsh reality is that the people in the town have to live with it, and the operator of the car wash is going to have to hear about it all the time too. One question I did have: when they leave the car wash, the actual wash station, are you going to have like detailing or waxing or anything else? Is that supposed to just funnel into the parking spots, or?
Yeah, there's no proposal for detailing on the site. It would just be strictly a car wash.
Okay.
They can either exit to the, typically we would propose them to exit to the left, use the vacuums, and then leave through the northerly exit.
Okay. And then is that just a wash facility, or is there going to be I see the word bathroom in here. Is that going to be like a little waiting area too? People are expected to stay in their cars and drive through it.
Drive through.
Not
No, the
get
restrooms
out,
would just be for
hey.
employees. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Great.
Excuse me. Could you walk over and show us on the map here, or your picture, where cars are going to come in and what the traffic flow is going to be?
The entrance would be at the southerly curb cut. Vehicles would come in and enter the stacking area here, go through the facility and exit at this point. From here, they'd come around and use the vacuum bays. We have vacuum bays located here, here, and here. And then they would exit at this location.
Okay, so if cars are queuing up, they're coming in the southerly part of this, correct?
And then in through here, that's the reason for the double stack. Yeah.
So you have cars next to each other stacked up to come in?
Yep. And then they merge at this location here.
And I guess there's somebody there to merge them? An attendant?
There would be an attendant there.
And there's room for 15 cars double stacked, not one right behind each other. There's not a
So
line of
it's single through here, and then it's double in through here. Right now, we're showing a total of, I think, 14 vehicles. We anticipate if we needed to, we could fit 18 if they were bumper to bumper and they were to stack up in this location.
And do you know what the hours of the facility are going to be?
I don't have the exact hours. I can get that information for you, but I would estimate they're 7 a.m. to 6 o'clock, something similar to that. Saturdays and Sundays would probably be shorter hours.
But it will be open 7 days a week from 7 a.m. to 6 at night?
Yes.
Just a quick thought, and I'm just kind of spitballing here. If you had the northerly curb cut be the entrance and reverse the building, you'd have that whole entrance plus the parking spot areas to queue, and have where the queue is now be the exit. I think you'd have a hell of a lot more room to queue cars, and if need be, I suppose it would interfere with the parking portion of it, but.
We did look at that, trying to keep the vehicles and the vacuum. The vacuums tend to be an actual very busy. The vacuums are really what drives the car wash, believe it or not. So we wanted to keep those vehicles away from the stacking of the cars away from the vacuum stations is what the intention. But we did look at that. We can take another look at that again if need be.
Thank you.
I'm not sure who this is for. I'm looking at the letter from the Regional Water Authority, so I'm not sure if it's for Michael or for you. But number 2, it says the RWA recommends a minimum setback goal of 50 to 100 feet. This project does not meet our recommended minimum wetland setback goal of 50 feet. So why would we do this if it doesn't meet the minute? Then it continues to say the edge of the pavement in some areas is within 10 feet of the wetland.
They don't have the authority to make that call. The Wetlands Commission, so the Inland Wetlands Agency has that authority by statute to regulate the proximity, to development to mapped inland wetland soils. It's an existing condition. That comment really is out of their lane. It's something that the Wetlands Commission handled. There was a wetlands permit issued for it. I saw it too, but it's also, because this is an existing condition, the ideal situation would be is that the pavement wouldn't be up to where it is, but we're dealing with existing development. So they have a concern. However, really, like I said, it's an Inland Wetlands Agency issue, which was addressed, and they have their permits from the Inland Wetlands Agency. I'm sorry to cut you off, Casey.
No, that's okay. Because it just seems like that's a stop right there, but they can't stop it because of that.
Correct.
But can the commission stop it because of that?
No, once again, that's an Inland Wetlands Agency decision on proximity. And plus, you can't in Connecticut say to a developer or an applicant, you can't go within, within the upland review area. You have to allow some sort of give and take, provided the appropriate measures are taken to mitigate the both long-term and short-term impacts that the use and or construction will have on the environmentally sensitive receptors. In this case, they did balance that. They received their permits from the Wetlands Commission, so that concern was addressed.
I have another question on, this is from your office, 7A and B. It says that all maintenance and refueling of equipment and vehicles is performed as far as practical from all wetlands and water courses at least 100 feet if possible. So when we say if possible, what does that mean? We can't say, can you get rid of the if possible and just say it has to be 100 feet?
Which one are you on?
It's
Oh, that's from the Inland Wetlands as a condition for the Wetlands
right.
Commission. I don't know, Steve, you want to talk to that?
Well, we're not going to be refueling any vehicles on this site. There's no maintenance to be done from a vehicle perspective. So I don't think we have any issue living with that,
So-
that condition.
That concern may have been to other car washes that offer vehicle maintenance as part of their activities, which at this site would not be allowed. They're allowed to have a car wash there. It's in the aquifer protection zone. So a car wash is not considered regulated activity if it is connected to public sewer. The maintenance of vehicles such as doing oil changes, doing engine work, et cetera, that is not allowed as a new use in the aquifer. So that condition, although they are keeping an eye out for potential impacts, you wouldn't allow it as the Aquifer Protection Agency should they have fueling, maintenance of vehicles, et cetera. So it's handled, in turn, it's handled by the fact that it's in an aquifer protection area.
And so all car wash uses a lot of water, I guess, right? That's not a surprise to anybody. And so all the water after it's used to wash the cars will go into the sewer system. Everything goes into the sewer system.
Correct.
Yes. There is a recycling portion of the operation, but it does all go into the sewer system through an oil water separator.
There were some comments by the RWA, weren't there, in terms of perhaps limiting the number of parking spaces, Michael?
Yeah, so they picked up that site, the applicant's providing 22 spaces and maybe, by law, by reg, as Steve pointed out, they're required only to have 10. They're over parked in that sense, which they can look at that and try to maybe balance any impacts from queuing, et cetera, since you have extra parking spaces. So that's something that maybe the applicant could look into and maybe have some revised plans or, feedback.
Are you saying that the extra parking spaces will prevent extra queuing out into the street and such? Is that the purpose of
Well-
because there's a half a dozen employees in 22 parking spaces.
So the extra parking spaces are where the vacuums are located behind the building. So, you could eliminate a few of those stalls and move the building, let's say, 10 feet back, and then that would increase your queuing, which is sort of a concern that you've expressed. Just food for thought, not,
But when we're talking about parking spaces, are we including the areas where cars will be parked while they're vacuuming it? Do those count toward the 22?
correct.
That's right. Okay, so it's
It's
not,
kind of, not to interrupt, it's kind of a catch-22 because it technically is a parking space, but they're used a little differently than a normal parking space. So, when someone vacuums their car, they kind of come in, they vacuum, they leave. But we still counted it as a space, and I think Mike was saying that we're technically over the threshold, but the reason for that is these vacuum spaces. We have a lot of vacuum spaces on the site.
and the vacuum spaces are part of the 22. There's not 22, all right.
Correct.
How many vacuums are there?
14,
14 vacuums?
yes.
And they wouldn't be visible from the street? Those are behind the building?
Mostly behind the building. There's, I think, 3 vacuum bays to the south side of the building that would be visible, but everything else is in the backside.
They're behind the rear plane of the building, those on the side. So technically they're behind.
The rear yard. Yeah.
Yeah, so you said that people will come in, they'll go through the car wash and then they vacuum?
Well, they could do either. They could come in and just go straight to the vacuums and exit.
So they can go straight to the vacuums,
Or they
okay.
can come into the queue lane, exit, and then go to the vacuums.
What do most people do? I know what I do, but
To be, to be honest, lately vacuums are really, like I said, people will come and use the vacuums and not even use the car wash. So I think generally people will go to the vacuums first, but some people like myself, I never vacuum. I just go to the car wash. So I think you get a little bit of both as you go through.
are the vacuums going to be free? Is that like an enticement to,
No, they're not free.
they'll be coin?
Yes. Coin or credit card.
Right, yeah. So once someone's gone to vacuum, the vacuum is in the back, and then they get in that queue, where do they go?
So
Maybe I
if
missed
they're
that.
going to get a car wash, they would get into the queue
Right.
first. And then
Well,
they
well,
would,
what if they want to vacuum before the car wash?
then they would go straight in here and they would hit either these vacuums or the 2 on either side here.
And then how do they get it back into the,
They'd have to, if they wanted to get back into the car wash, they'd have to actually come out of the site.
so when I do my car, I vacuum first and then car wash it. So if my husband says it's backwards, but if I did it that way, then I would go to the vacuums, go back out under Route 10.
It's
and then-
totally backwards. You should do it the other way.
That's what he says, but that's how I do it. And so if I were to continue that, that's how you would have to exit and
You would
then,
have to exit, yes.
and then come back in line, which would cause even more traffic. So if someone is coming in just to vacuum, then they're going to shoot to the back, use the vacuums, and then just come back out around.
Just come back out, yeah.
And there's no queue for the vacuums?
No.
Thanks. Thank you.
The first curb cut on the south side, this is all one-way traffic, basically. There's not in and out on the south side and out only on the north side?
So we are proposing a one-way loop. The
Okay.
curb cuts are wide enough to handle two-way, but we just left the existing curb cuts as is. So
Yeah, you
but
don't,
we're proposing a counterclockwise rotation.
okay, yeah.
So I think that, from what you've heard, we're going to ask you to come back and talk more about the queuing. Um,
The property owner, Ken Greensburg, would like to just say a few words if we could before you continue.
Thank you.
Your name.
My name is Ken Ginsberg. I'm the owner of the property. With regard to the queuing, Our preference was actually to put the vacuums in the front. When you drive by a lot of the car washes, the vacuums in the front, people see the vacuums. It's an attraction for them. When we met with the town and we met with your professionals, they were very clear that the town really wanted the aesthetics of having the building up front and to have the vacuums in the back. So we did everything we could to try to make sure that that happened, okay? And there are some sacrifices that obviously take place when that happens. So the idea of moving the queue towards the back, we would love that. We would actually we would be tickled pink over that. To push everything back, push the queuing in the back, and put all the vacuums in the front. But that's not what we heard that the town wanted. So we did what the town wanted and put the queuing in the front, put the vacuums in the back. Vacuums are extremely important to a car wash. It's somewhat of a draw, if you will, and losing parking, losing vacuums, they really shouldn't be considered a parking space. They really should be considered a vacuum, to space to vacuum your car. It's not as people are sitting there just parked for an hour while they do the car. They're there to vacuum. So, when you ask us to come back and consider putting the queuing towards the back, we're kind of torn. And I'm looking for some direction from you, as the representatives of the town. If you'd like for us to put the vacuums in the front, oh my goodness, that would just be the greatest thing in the world for us. On the other hand, if you want us to have a little bit larger queue and sacrifice and move everything towards the back, that's a problem. That's a problem. So it's a sacrifice. And I don't know how else to say it, except that if you want us to do that, we'd like some guidance and just.
Well, I don't think that we'd be in favor, and I think the staff is right about having the vacuums in the front. But you use the word catch-22, because that queue coming off of Route 10 and possibly blocking the other people that are going to come in to use that. I don't know. I think you really need to look at the property and try and figure out a way to extend that queue somehow, whether it's around the back, side, take a little bit on the side. I'm not sure what the right way to do that is.
The queue will actually block your vacuum customers from coming in. So if vacuums are important, then the people aren't going to come vacuum your car if the queue is blocking the entrance to get to the vacuums anyways. So I agree with what Jeff is saying. I mean, my logic is to just reverse the whole thing. I now put the queue, just flip, instead of being counterclockwise, do clockwise. And then you have all the queue you need when it's busy. You flip the parking spots the other direction so they enter angled the other way. That way, when there's a big queue for the car wash, you've got all the room in the world. But when people are just coming in to vacuum, they pull right in, no big deal. I know it's reverse. You're supposed to wash first and then vacuum, but I mean that's just my opinion. I don't, I'm not an expert in that field, but that's my thought anyway.
So I just want to clarify one thing. So the reason why the vacuums are behind the building is because they're considered an accessory structure. So they have to be behind the primary. That's why it's by regulation. It's not just the aesthetics. That's just a bonus that the aesthetics are handled by the screening of the features by the building. You also have a regulation saying they're accessory. They have to go behind the primary.
Yeah.
But that's a win-win situation,
Correct.
in my opinion.
Thank you. So as I'm working my way through the queue and I am done taking care of my car and my vacuuming, and I'm ready to pull back out onto Route 10, I can go either right or left? And do we have concerns that backup trying to take a left out of there is going to further impact the backup of folks trying to come in? Right?
Get the mic. Sorry.
Sorry. Vehicles exiting would be on the north curb cut. So vehicles entering would only be on this curb cut.
Right, but if I'm trying to take a left onto Route 10, I'm going to have to cross traffic that's coming northbound. So I'm going
This
to have to
way.
cross the lanes
Mhm.
and try to get out there. And as I'm trying to do that, if I've got other folks behind me who are trying to make a left as well, aren't we creating some backup?
I don't think, I would say no. The existing Arby's with the drive-through functions in that same manner, and our peak volumes are much less than a fast food restaurant. So I don't think we'll see that conflict.
Well, you mentioned that there's also room for 2 cars. So will one be a left-hand turn lane and one
they are
right turn?
double, right. Originally, the curb cuts originally are two-way in and out on both sides. We're proposing to just make it one directional on both ends, one way in and one way out. But you could turn 2 lanes, you could turn left and right. You could pass a car in one of those lanes if you needed to, pulling into the site.
I know that we've talked a lot about the queue, and you're going to take that away for the next meeting. Looking at the drawings of the buildings, looks like a nice building. Looks like
Thank
it'll
you.
fit in. Can you tell us a little bit about the lighting plan, a little bit about the materials that are going to be used on the building, and a little more of the look and feel?
I'll tell you about the lighting. There will be full cutoff fixtures throughout. It's from a building perspective, we don't have our building representative here, but can you talk a little bit about the finishes of the building?
The idea is to match or come as close to matching the surrounding buildings, the adjacent buildings, to have everything blend in. And that's, we had a nice talk with the town planner, and we wanted everything to blend in. So as far as what colors are concerned, we haven't picked colors or anything like that, but it'll likely be a hardy plank, maintenance-free, AZEC hardy plank type of maintenance-free facility, something that will look nice forever and ever and not have to be painted every several years. As far as color is concerned, we haven't quite picked that yet, but it's going to be a traditional looking building, and we haven't done the lighting plan yet.
Gotcha. It looks a little bit like the Ricky buildings that are a little further down from the drawing.
We tried to make it that way, yes.
What's to the south of it that I don't recognize the building? What is that now? To the right on the right side of the picture.
The south, I believe, is just an office. It's an office building.
Is that one of the Ricky buildings that's there now?
So
No.
It used to be an old gas station that was
the aerial
sold. It was-
photograph.
I was gonna say, is the aerial photograph
It
old?
pre-
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little dated. It's showing the old, was it
Yeah,
the
I was
Valero
gonna say.
station that was there?
Yeah, the gas station is no longer there. It was knocked down, and there's a new office building right next door.
Gotcha. One of the things we're looking to do too is kind of have a similar look and feel, which for the building it would. Tell us about the signs. What kind of signs you're going to have on the side of the building, on the road? What are you planning?
I don't know that we've actually gotten that far. Whatever we do is going to be in compliance with zoning. Obviously, we'd like to have as big a sign as possible, but I actually don't even think we're going to need it. I think it's going to speak for itself. So whatever complies with zoning on the side is what we'll end up doing.
So, Mr. Glidden, what kind of signs can they have there?
So we'll start with the wall sign. They can go up to 5% of the face of the building or that it's attached to, or if it's in, well, it's not an awning. We don't have to worry about that. A freestanding sign, you have up to 32 square feet allowed, so 4 by 8. That's the 2 options that they have for signage in your existing regs.
So with it being a special permit, I mean, 4x8 is a big sign down there.
Yeah.
With it being a special permit, can we try to work to limit the size of that?
We can, if you like, and while we're revisiting the plan, maybe we can give you some examples of what we're.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Signs. Okay.
I was just going to suggest maybe to get a draft from the applicant before we start talking
Okay.
what they can or cannot do, in fairness to
Yeah.
them. So
Oh
they-
yeah, I'm not saying you're going to put a big 4x8. So
That's, I guess, unless you have other questions, we just ask that this hearing be continued until your next meeting.
I'll definitely continue it. But if you're done, and I'm sorry, anybody else?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm just, maybe less now than when I came in, but I'm focusing on the special permit regulation. It talks about the nature of the surrounding area and the extent to which proposed use and its features and appearance will be in harmony with the surrounding area, including the effect on property values? I mean, this is really the center of town. We have office buildings, we have restaurants. I guess we have a gas station pretty much across the street. Can you just tell me how this is, give me your views on how it's in harmony with the area? Because people will someday ask us about it being in harmony.
Well, I think when we thought about in harmony, we were thinking about the aesthetics of the building and the facility, and how it would blend in, keeping the building close to the building line and in line with buildings on either side. Moving I know that the vacuums have to be in the back, obviously, but that's another way of keeping in harmony with the neighbors. And we just felt that compared to the existing use, that this use would fit better at this location than the Arby's that's there now. Do you have any comments
Of
about?
course, Arby's isn't there anymore, but
I'm sorry.
Arby's is not there anymore.
Well, they're still in control.
They're there in control. They still have a lease for several more years. This proposal, this new use, hopefully will put them out of their misery and allow the town to allow us to go forward with another use that's going to be, that's going to look nice, be consistent with the rest of the adjacent neighbors. They're just cars. This is really just a parking lot with cars, and I get it. And we're looking to make something nice for the town. I think it's a use that's needed for this side of town. And we're just trying to make it comply and make it aesthetically pleasing for the rest of the area.
So you think that this use and building is beneficial to this particular area? You think it improves the area?
I do. I think it's a use that's needed. I think it's I think it's there's no car wash on this side of town. And I think the use is consistent. It provides for an even flow of traffic. And I think that the building also is in compliance with not only the adjacent properties, but the rest of the town.
Okay, and just, commenting on something that you just said, there's nothing on this side of town. So again, probably gonna be crowded, so just want to bring that up again about the queue.
I hear you loud and clear, and we will try to give you some more samples to show how we feel we fit in from a harmony perspective at your next hearing. So we'll sit down and let the public speak. And
Yep, anybody else before we go to the public?
Yeah, what are the hours and what will you do in the winter time?
I think what I had said was I believe the hours would be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. And slightly earlier hours on the weekends. I don't think that it would change in the winter, unless inclement weather would be the only reason I think that the hours would differ from those.
I'm just curious, the winter times you see car washes, to the one in Southington, I mean, that's a disaster up there. The cars, they're busier than, but at the same token, the water's coming out freezing on the cars once they go through,
Yeah, well, some of the technology there is a
I'm
little.
just thinking of
yeah.
safety. If you testify that you can tell us it's going to be safe, then
I believe that it will
you're
be.
on the hook and not me. I'm just asking the question so that somebody will say, well, how come you didn't ask that question? Now we got a terrible accident that could have been prevented, Just hypothetically, I'm throwing it out to you.
Yeah, so I'm not an engineer. I do
Neither
wash
am
my
I.
cars twice a week, so I'm really into car washes. And I do wash my car and then vacuum. But the car wash is going to be self-contained, so that water is not going to be spilling out at all onto the street. It's not going to get anywhere near it. I go to a car wash in Milford, and when you pull out of the car wash, the pitch of the car wash goes right down into the street. And, it is a concern. But in this particular case, because of the elevations and the pitch that we have, that's not going to happen. I also want to make I'm going to say a general remark, and this is not a professional remark at all. It's me going to car washes. I don't have to get my car washed at a particular time. If I see that the car wash doesn't have a very long line, I'll get my car washed. If I think that the car wash has a little bit of a line and I have that much time to be able to wash my car, I'll go. But most people, and I think I'm like most people, are not going to sit and wait in a line where you're, I'm going to say, sticking out on the road. You don't want to be that guy. And they'll probably come back. I would anyway. I would come back and say, you know what? I don't want to be that guy. I'll wait until the line goes down. Maybe I'll go to Dunkin' Donuts and get myself a cup of coffee and see what happens. Or maybe I'll come back in the afternoon or come back in the morning. I think that lines naturally for a car wash, it's not like Starbucks where I need my morning Joe and I'm going to do anything I have to do and wait for whatever time I need. It's a car wash, and people will tend to come back if they want to or if they need to, and not extend that line out. And again, I'm not speaking professionally. I'm just speaking practically, and that's just me. Thank you.
Question. I don't see, and maybe I just can't see it, but a list of the plantings.
On sheet, I think
I don't know. I was looking at this one.
I believe it's C1.
Is this
Let's see.
folder?
Casey, maybe I'll go over the list right now. I have it up on the screen if you're interested.
Oh,
So the screening trees, you have Leyland cypress, red spruce, emerald green arborvitae. The shade trees, a red oak, red maple, silver linden, wild red cherry. For the shrubs that are on the berm in the front, common winterberry, red chokeberry, rhododendron, witherwood viburnum, high bush blueberry, and common juniper.
okay. I just couldn't find it anywhere. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, anybody from the public wishing to speak? No? We'll keep this hearing open for next meeting.
Yep, we meet in 2 weeks, and just to clarify with the applicant, so they're going to come back, look at queue, look at traffic, signage. Those are the
Signage,
areas.
yes.
Okay. So Steve has his homework that he's going to work on.
Thank you for your time and consideration tonight.
Okay, moving on. Items 3 and 4, we're gonna do the call together.
Items 3 and 4 for the night. Application for the site plan approval on behalf of CREM Holdings LLC. Applicant owner. Applicant is requesting a site plan approval for a proposed office at the property located at 556 Maple Avenue, Assessors Map 50, Lot 269, in a zone R20A. Number 4, application for a special permit on behalf of CREM Holdings LLC. Applicant owner. Applicant is requesting a special permit pursuant to Section 30, Schedule A, Number 49 of the zoning regs for a proposed office at the property located at 556 Maple Avenue, Assessors Map 50, Lot 269, Zone R20A.
Thank you. Who's representing the applicant? Go to the microphone, give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Alyssa Pillion. I am the owner of the property. And my address is 375 Maple Shade Road in Middletown.
Thank you.
And I am Austin Dowd, a civil engineer with SLR Consulting, located out of the Cheshire office. And we are here on part of 556 Maple Ave. The proposed change in use and proposed parking improvements. On the board right now is the existing conditions aerial. Historically, the lot has been a single-family house with just a gravel driveway, and it is currently zoned as R20A, along with the lots to the north and the east. And the lots to the south and across the street are zoned R20 currently. And the uses to the north and south are primarily a mix of professional offices, a bank, medical offices, and to the south and across the street is a single-family house and multifamily units. There are no wetlands, no flood zones. There's no aquifer protection on site. There's no natural diversity area. The lot currently slopes gently from west to east. And historically, there is no formal drainage facilities on the property. And the property is served by public utilities, water, sewer, which all have laterals that go out to Maple Ave currently. And there's no changes proposed to those. Let me flip to the. As you can see, there's. Oh. So as you can see, there's only improvements to the parking. There's no change to the exterior of the building besides maintenance items. Like I think the building has been re-roofed, but there's no changes to the exterior of the building and its residential character currently. The building roughly will have 1,700 square feet of finished space, and that will cause 9 spaces required. We are currently showing 10 spaces surface along with 2 possible garage spaces. The new driveway will be slightly to the north of the existing driveway, and the majority of the parking will be towards the rear of the property, which is several feet below the current road grade. So it will slightly be visually kind of harder to see with only 1 spot and 1 handicap spot more at road grade. We meet the zoning regs in terms of setbacks for the parking lot, 20 feet from the existing residential boundary, 20 feet from the street line, and all the grades associated with that. The proposed stormwater is relatively simple. We are just slightly changing the grade on site. Will swale to the south towards the southern property line, that swale will drain around towards a proposed water quality depression, which has an infiltration trench that will ideally try to infiltrate as much water as possible with the overflow towards the south, how it currently is draining today. We have received administrative approval from WPCA for the change in use, where we are reducing wastewater flows. And we have received comments from engineering, and we have performed 2 test pits on site to satisfy that comment and for the stormwater features. And I will say there is, for the screening, there is an existing vinyl clad fence along the eastern boundary that is partially on the neighbor's property, partially on this property. And we are proposing a mix of evergreens and hardwoods along the southern boundary to kind of provide a buffer to the existing single-family residence. And I will have the applicant talk about the use and kind of like the hours of operations, if that works.
So my name is Alyssa Pillion, as I said before, and I actually own a business here in town. I've been operating since 2007. I own Connecticut Real Estate Management. We manage 7 condo associations here just in Cheshire alone. We have an 8th association that's coming on board on July 1. And my intention for the space is to have this as my home office. I employ 6 staff, 3 property managers and 3 bookkeepers, and myself. We have extremely limited customer traffic. If people are coming in, they're coming in to pick up documents or drop off a condo payment. So I think that the traffic would be extremely limited. We have a drop box at our current location. So a lot of people, even if they are coming to drop off a payment, they utilize the drop box system. Our business hours are 8:30 to 4:30. In the summer, we operate on shorter hours. We close at 12:30 on Fridays. We do not operate on the weekends. I do not employ any maintenance staff. So, we don't do landscaping, roofing, siding. We do have a home improvement license and we do oversight and general contracting for projects, but everything that we use is subcontractors. So I wouldn't be storing any equipment or materials on site. On occasion, after hours, we may host a board meeting. If our condo associations don't have enough space to host it somewhere else, but generally that's 2 or 3 people coming in. So that's the change of use that we're looking for approval for this evening.
Can you talk to us about is there a lighting plan? Are you going to add any lights outside? And also address the signage that you're requesting?
I don't have an application for signage yet, but I will work with the town on that once I get through this approval process. And we would just use the existing lighting on the building. There's several floodlights on the corners of the building that we would utilize for lighting.
So, Mr. Glidden, what's the plan for the signage?
So,
And I'm sorry, can you go through first of all what's allowed?
Yeah.
And then go for
I will say this, I don't need a large sign. We don't depend on street traffic for advertising to customers. Our customers are by word of mouth. So, I would really just need a smaller sign to indicate, that where our property location actually is. So whatever the size requirements are, we would work well within those parameters.
are you looking for a freestanding sign, or do you think you can get away with just like a blade sign on the building?
I'd like some sort of signage out front, but I could make it closer to the building.
I think there's a sign out front on the building right next to it now. There's a fairly large sign, isn't there?
Correct, because by regulation, so in the R20A zoning district, you allow up to 32 square feet for directional or freestanding signs. I think what's kind of unique about this property is, although it's zoned R20A, it's entirely surrounded by single-family homes, single-family zoning district. So it's not your typical R20A application that we see that's like on Route 10, that has other similar businesses next to it. I mean, this has something to the north of it, but it sticks out because I put in my staff report a copy of the zoning map for the area, and you can see how it kind of really, this is the southern part of that portion. You're welcome. Thanks for pointing out, Tom. So, I mean, if you can get away with a smaller sign, and we're talking like a directional sign that's like 4 or 5 square feet, just saying her name, or blade sign on the building, that probably, is more keeping in character with the single family neighbors that are around there. I mean, by regulation, she's allowed a larger sign, but also, as Commissioner Tedesco pointed out in your special permit section, you're looking at the nature of the use, impacts, and harmony with the surrounding area. This could be something that sticks out. You're like, that's really not in harmony with the single-family zoning district. So a smaller, subdued sign makes sense at this location if the applicant.
Yeah, I'm absolutely in agreement with that. I mean, I will say the person to the owners to the adjacent property, I mean, they have much more traffic coming in and out. There's a psychiatrist, I think, an accountant. I'm not sure what else is in there. And actually, the adjacent property on the other side, when I first purchased the property, they had equipment and property on my property line. When we had the property surveyed, I had to have a conversation with that gentleman to move his stuff over to his side so that we can start clearing the land, for the parking lot. So that's really tight right there. So I don't want there to be any confusion as to where his driveway is and where my driveway is. And like, I will need to put in, you'll see in the plans, I plan on putting a whole buffer in there anyways, but more it's just like to let people know where we are. So there's no confusion where people are stopping and trying to back up and figure out, which driveway and stuff to pull into. Like I said, I don't need it for advertising my business.
I don't think I would tell an applicant that they can't have what the regulations allow already. I mean, it's a 4x8 sign anyhow, that's not gigantic, but, I mean, pardon me?
But
Well, that's a relative term. I mean, I suppose you might think it's big, somebody else might not think it's big, but it's allowed by the regulations anyway. So,
but it's a residential area, and as she says, she wants to please the neighbors too, so I respect you for that.
So could I suggest one or two options? It kind of sounds like you want to see, or I shouldn't say that. Some people may be concerned about the impact that this has on the single-family residential neighborhood. She's said that she wants to do a smaller sign for the same reasons. She doesn't need the same level of advertisement. Now, you could keep the hearing open. She comes in quick with a quick rendering to show what they can live with, which will enable them to be identified and not run afoul and kind of stick out. Or, you know, if she's saying, if she would agree to, like I said, a smaller sign, like a,
Yeah, I could commit to nothing larger than a 3x5 if that would satisfy the committee.
So that's right along what I was going to say, because the map that Michael put together is really good. I like the colors. You have R20A, you have the one next to you, I think is a psychologist. I think there's a massage place in there or something. Then you have Cheshire Wine and Spirits and Cumberland's on the corner. Then behind you, you have TD Bank and another little business park of some sorts. However, across the street and on the other side is all houses. It's where people live. The light, the sign in front of the property north of you where the psychologist is and the massage place, I think is lighted too. And that sticks out like a sore thumb. Now, granted, it's on the end of the street where you've got business, and then it's houses. So it kind of flows. And I just, I would appreciate you as the applicant toning it down a little bit, or at least putting something tasteful. So I mean,
Yeah,
a 3x5
like-
wood sign with nice lights on it, not lighted sign, but a lights aimed at it for the evening or whatever. That would be nice.
Yeah, if anything, I would just put a ground spotlight, not even
Yeah,
a spotlight,
yep.
like a path light
Yep.
almost, because, really I'm kind of, the entrance is kind of close to the road. So the lighting that I have right just from the porch lighting, I don't need to, like I said, I don't need to light this up. I'm not going to be there at 9 o'clock at night. So I could definitely commit to a smaller sign and it would be something very, simple and basic.
well, there's normally nobody there after 4:30 or 5 o'clock anyway, right? I think that's your usual, those are your hours that you mentioned. So
Yeah. Well, sometimes I get stuck there till 8 o'clock, but other than that,
Well, yes, and you would need to have lighting in your driveway for safety. But generally speaking, the building is quiet after business hours, right? And you
Yeah.
wouldn't necessarily need lights on your sign because there's very rarely are people pulling up it in the dark.
There's association meetings and stuff though that are evening, but
That's an occasional.
okay, yeah, once a month or something, or not even probably. Yeah.
yeah, not even. I mean, I have some smaller associations that we represent that just don't have clubhouses and they don't have,
Yeah.
they don't have the space. So like I said, that's why I just anticipated on using the existing, floodlights that are on the house. I would upgrade them to, something more.
LED efficient
Yeah.
or something. Yeah.
You're increasing the size of the parking lot?
Correct. There's no parking lot there now. There's not even a driveway really there now. It's just crushed stone.
And there's no issue with runoff then? I could ask the engineer that.
No, there's no issue, given like the condition of the grass and stuff and the amount of landscaping and lawn area that we are proposing should, along with the depression, water quality depression, the comps indicate that we are all set.
I have a question. The plantings there, are you taking out the fence and putting the plantings? You said something like there's a fence, or where's the fence that you?
So there's the existing clad.
Austin, Mike. Thanks.
Yes, so there's an existing vinyl white fence along this property boundary that's mostly on the neighbors and slightly comes onto this property, then we are in,
Who's the neighbor there?
I do believe that is like an office type building.
So it's
The
not
office park?
it's not a residence?
No,
Okay.
no, it's these people.
Okay. And then you're going to put plantings in,
Yes, along this southern
Okay.
boundary.
I just have one comment on the plantings you picked, the sweet gum tree and where you're putting it here. It's known for invasive roots that come up and wreck sidewalks.
Well, I do believe the site plan has been modified to eliminate the sweet gum, so.
Okay, I was going to say, just because they're known, I looked it up. I always look
yeah.
up the plantings, and it's saying it's one of the 5 trees you should never plant near sidewalks because the roots will come up, ruin the sidewalks. Large balls come down and then they land on the sidewalk, and actually people slip and fall on them. So maybe just for your own.
Yeah.
You could probably pick a better tree. That's
And
all
I-
I'm saying.
Okay.
All right. Thanks.
Austin, just maybe for the record, what did you replace it with, just so?
Ooh, I do not know off the top of my head,
I
but
have the planting list if you wanted. Okay. Yes, there's a revised planting landscape, I'm sorry.
The last 4 plants on what you may have been eliminated because my idea was that I was just going to tie into that existing vinyl fence on that whole corner. So rather than having those large invasive trees all the way down in the back, I was going to tie into the existing fence, the existing white vinyl fence. And so those last 4 trees that are in that plan that you might be looking at have been eliminated.
Just one question. This is solely for the use of your business, right? There's no subletting any office space or,
No subletting.
okay, thank you.
I don't think so.
Okay, anybody from the public?
I'm Guy Darter. I live at 474 Maple Avenue. My concern is with the sign. One, it's an office where her employees are coming, so they know where they're coming. They surely don't need it lit at night. Nobody's there at night. It is a residential neighborhood. We're trying to keep it as a residential neighborhood. Signage is a problem. The size of it, I mean, if it's only her employees that are going there, put a sign on the building, small sign on the building, she knows where it is. Nobody needs to find where they're working. They surely know where they're working. Lighted at night, it's unnecessary. They're not there at night. As she says, she's not advertising. There's no need to have it lit. That neighborhood is coming back more and more residential. People are investing in the neighborhood. We'd like to keep it as a residential neighborhood and not turning into more of what the end by where the liquor store and CVS is. So I just request that you look at that and think about the fact that, would you like to have a sign on your neighborhood, on your drive, on your street where you live, 3x5, it's still 3x5, and lit is still lit. So just think about it from your neighborhood when you go home tonight, drive down the street and say, 3 doors down, well, what the heck, let them put a sign up on the building. Thank you very much, appreciate it.
So we have one person from the public that spoke. A couple of us up here also spoke about that signage. So, again, thank you. I know that you're willing to work with us to keep it as minimal as possible. And from what I heard, I don't want to speak for you, but you said that you wouldn't need lights on there because the lights from the building would illuminate it enough.
To satisfy my neighbor, I'll agree to not put any lights on the sign.
And Michael can work with it administratively as far as the, say no bigger than 3x5? If
So-
possible, to keep it smaller?
So I actually put in a condition, just writing based on what we've discussed. If the applicant is in agreement with this, should you close the hearing and wish to act on this tonight? Freestanding sign is not to exceed by 3 by 5. It is not to be externally lit. How about, is not to be lit, period?
No lighting. No lighting.
Not that you would, but yeah, we light on the inside. You said external.
We have to remember too that if you vacate and you rent it out to another office, they're gonna be like, hey, why is the sign not lit up? And then throw up a huge light. So you gotta.
But again, I think we're talking maximum 3 by 5, but if you can get smaller, put it closer to the building or on the building, that'd be preferred.
Yep.
Okay. Anybody else? I think. You are closed. So I'd like to open the Planning and Zoning regular meeting for Monday, May 22nd, 2023. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes from the previous meeting?
Motion to accept the minutes.
Mr. Selmont, Mr. Tedisco for the second. Any comments? Any discussion? No? All in favor of accepting?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? Motion carries. Okay, so we have item number 1 is the cannabis discussion. So we are not going to vote on this tonight. I'd like to have a little bit of discussion around the motions. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. Glidden to walk us through a little bit of that.
So in your packet, you have a memorandum from me dated May 16th, kind of outlining your 3 options that you have. Option 1 is approve the text amendment as submitted in its entirety. Option 2 is you could separate certain uses and say like, we are okay with everything except for the retail. You could modify the retail and say, we're only comfortable with retail like in the industrial zone properties within 1,000 feet of the highway or the other 2 corners that were identified. Or what the commission could do is you could say, we're not comfortable with retail, period. We'll approve everything but the retail. The retail will remain a prohibited use in the regs. Those are your 3 options. We have to do something. We can't do nothing with the retail. So that's why the 3rd option of saying, let's go as far as putting it as a prohibited use, you would have to do that. So, and I would, and as Jeff said, I would prefer that I'll draft a motion for you outlining this. And it's kind of a larger conversation. I don't want to do this on the fly. You have time. Based on statute, you have 65 days to act after the close of the public hearing. That puts us to July 12th, which ironically is the same date that the moratorium expires. It was just, you couldn't work this out. So needless to say, we have to do something with this application. And so you meet twice in June, and you could easily meet your statutory requirements before this moratorium expires.
So do we need to have a discussion amongst us as far as which option we prefer for you to come with a motion for? Or
Yeah, I mean, I prefer maybe just a quick, discussion regarding how you want to proceed. You want me to draft all 3? Do you only want me to look at 1, 2? Do you want me to look at modifications? And I know the entire commission isn't here tonight, so it's just who's here, but I'm sure everyone is going to watch.
So would one option be nothing? No retail, no delivery, no growing, no cannabis, period?
Yeah, you can go as far as that too. You can, if you have an issue not only with the retail sales, but everything, you could say, let's say that option 4, I'm sorry, I probably should have put option 4 in there to say, deny everything and put it as a prohibited use.
Well, I think we should have that option. I mean, I would probably,
I apologize. I didn't mean, that wasn't intentional.
It's a very good point.
Yeah. Isn't there a guy now that come there and said that he was growing it?
No, nobody, you can't grow it legally in town right now.
Well,
Well,
there
I'm
was-
sure you can a micro cultivator,
Right.
if somebody had a license,
Yeah,
it is allowed.
he could do it.
So,
But wasn't there one gentleman that?
yeah, there was a gentleman on Diana Court. He's doing hemp farming right now. That, remember when you did your first moratorium, he came and the commission, we took out micro cultivators, and actually that's allowed by special permit in the industrial zoning districts. But that's a very specific license. And he did not apply because he never came back to this commission to seek approval of a special permit.
He never got the lottery, or he didn't meet the requirements anyways or something, so, yeah. 'Cause Chairman Kurtz also had mentioned something about, it has to be in an actual building. It can't be a greenhouse or a open farm.
Correct.
Probably prohibited, or, had a lot of bearing in his decision as well, so.
The larger operators all within,
Yeah, that was a state thing, not us.
that's not us.
Right.
That's the state licensing.
And based on the public input at the last hearing, you know, I know what I'm thinking, haven't made up my mind, obviously, because we haven't taken a vote yet. But, you know, any other thoughts from anybody as far as having 4 motions prepared or 1?
It's an interesting situation because it's one of the few times we could openly discuss it outside the meeting. I think we should be able to narrow it down to at least 2 for Michael, or 1, or come to an agreement on some way or shape or form.
And we're okay saying which one we prefer, correct? So,
Because you're directing staff
Yeah.
to draft the motion. I know that there was a motion drafted that was in the packet, or the motions I provided, but that was, everything's okay, an effective date quick.
gotcha.
I don't think we're going down that road.
we're just discussing options now. We're not committing to
Right.
anything. We got 7 different motions, I suppose. We don't want to make it look that hard.
Option 1, the text amendment, that's the one that we had been working on for a while. We had drafted, we had 2 or 3 meetings in 207, and we had, I don't know, was it 16 pages of amendments there? That's what option 1 is referring to.
Yep.
As written, et cetera, et cetera.
Correct. And then if that's what you chose, there's an example of what that motion will look like. Obviously, the effective date will change in 2 weeks.
So option one would be to adopt regulations as written. Option 2 is, option 2 and 3, 2 is,
Put them in certain areas.
certain areas, 3 is no retail, and 4 would be
Nothing.
deny everything.
Well, 4 would be deny everything except for micro cultivators, because you already allow that use.
The micro cultivator was already adopted.
Yes.
Correct.
Well, okay, but it was adopted then. That doesn't mean it has to stay forever. I mean, I'm not suggesting that we would do that, but we could decide now not to have micro cultivating, couldn't we?
We could delete it.
Well, that would be a substantial change to the application because it was not part of the application. That would trigger a separate public hearing for the deletion of micro cultivators. But if you said, let's say all the other licenses, you don't want to see it, and then staff, could you draft the text amendment to also delete micro cultivators and put it in as a prohibited use? We could do that.
Yeah, personally, I'm leaning towards option 3, which is for anybody listening, that's, not having the retail sales, but allowing the cultivation and other uses. We are a farming community.
So, and just to reiterate, the other permits that would be allowed would be micro cultivator, packager, delivery. Is that it? Am I
Food
missing
and
it?
beverage manufacturer, label makers. I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's like 11 licenses.
And those are all commercial, industrial. Retail is the only thing that's retail.
Correct.
I echo the sentiments with Jeff. I could see option 3 as being the best balance between what we've talked about what the public hearing netted and everything else, I'm leaning towards option 3 right now.
And if we go with option 1, 2, or 3, allowing something, just like with the retailers under option 2, when we talk about the cultivators, the delivery, everything else, we have to, can we specify industrial only or?
So the draft right now puts all those uses in the industrial zoning districts. And there are certain safeguards such as the cultivators on distances, et cetera, from residentially zoned property, residences, to balance the potential quality of life impacts that use may have.
And, as the chair tonight, I'm not saying, hey, we have to go with number 3. I think that, we need to hear from everybody to see, which way they're leaning. So Michael said, at the next meeting or the following meeting, when we actually vote on it, that we have a solid motion in front of us that reflects, what we're thinking as a body.
I'll make it easy for you. I'm totally against. So that's one vote, it's where it's going.
Well, yeah, Michael, I think I would still argue for at least one motion that says nothing. Now, micro cultivating is already permitted, and if that has to be treated separately, I guess we can exempt that from the motion. And if we felt strongly about that, which I'm not sure we would, but if we did, then we could have a separate proceeding and a public hearing sometime down the road to get rid of micro cultivating, right? But I think that there should be, I would like there to be one that says we prohibit any marijuana retail or otherwise in the town, period. And I think that's to be the one you would vote on first, because if that one passes, then you don't need to do anything else because you voted to have nothing. It may not pass, in which case then, you go on to the other ones, but is that what you're saying too? You would.
Yeah, sort of, but how about, if they took it to a court of law, you would probably have the answer. If we deny all but one, would that be fair? Would that be acceptable to the court to do something like that?
I mean, that we're a long way from that. I think.
No, I know, but
No, but
it helps me how I vote, because I'm really totally against.
Michael has to say about that.
Yeah.
So one thing, remember, this is a legislative decision of the commission, so the court is going to give you a high level of discretion on which option you choose, as long as we can point in the record why we chose to do what we did. I don't think this is a situation where you're creating a have and have not between applicants, because if you think of it, the use isn't allowed today. So no one's have a pre-existing non-conforming use that they have a monopoly on the market. You're saying, are we going to allow it as a use or are we not? And if we're going to allow it, how and where are we going to allow it? So I don't see an issue with that. I don't see it creating a legal issue. And like I said, because it's a legislative decision of the commission, you have a high degree of discretion.
And
So
technically, Woody, just to
Go ahead.
go part of what you're saying, technically, correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, if we vote one way, we get option X, technically it could still go to referendum.
That's correct. Let's say someone.
If we make an unpopular decision, the town can,
Yeah.
the voters of the town could overrule us anyways.
Well, that's great. That would be their option.
Right.
So
But I don't want to say to the children of Cheshire, hey, I'm up here telling you that I personally have nothing wrong with it and I'm voting for it, That's my gut feeling of what I'm saying, I'm for the future of Cheshire and, what people do in their own house, for those that are watching, I could care less. When your own home is your home. But for me to sit up here and say, oh, yeah, that's great. I honestly can't say that. I'll either abstain from voting or won't vote at all.
Sorry.
Real quick, is there a time restriction for the referendum?
So, yes, there's a time restriction in the sense that they have to follow, I can't remember how many days prior to the next general election that's scheduled. That's where there's not a time restriction in the sense of similar to Public Act 2129, where we had to opt out by January 1st. No, that in 2023. Instead, this thing's just really, if you're going to submit a petition requesting a referendum, either way, up or down, it just needs to be filed and approved by the town clerk, X days prior to the general election.
Right, for the general, but I was saying if we do something in July and then 4 years later, there's 100,000 people that say, hey, you're wrong. There's no restrict, whether it's 20 days, 20 months, or 6 years, that they could theoretically overturn our decision at referendum.
Correct.
Okay.
And that's roughly what, 1,200 certified signatures?
Yeah, it's
Somewhere around there?
But you shouldn't, my advice to you as your professional staff, I wouldn't be basing my decision on the fact that the referendum could be out there. Because the thing too is you got to get the signatures, you got to qualify, and it doesn't affect this. This is really your land use decision to say, based on the testimony received at the public hearing, based on the work we've done on the proposal, do you agree with it or don't you? And if you don't, why don't you? Is there any modifications that could be made to the proposal that would make you feel comfortable to vote for it? And as Commissioner Tedesco said, maybe I just don't agree with it entirely. So we're going to say no, put it as prohibited use.
Right, and I 100% agree. And that my decision is based on everything. I'm trying to keep my opinion out of it and stay unbiased and vote for the good of the town and based on what I've heard. However, it's actually interesting that a referendum could be done at any time. So we make a legislative decision. We say, here's X, here's what we decided to do. And then if, 5 years down the road, everybody doesn't like it, they could do something about it. So
Well, they could vote us all out of office over.
that is 100% true.
People who want pot, and then we have pot, right?
But maybe they like us but want pot.
Right.
So,
So I agree with Mr. Tedisco. I'd like to see two options offered, 3 and 4.
I'm also feel the same way. I'd like 3 and 4. I'd be leaning towards 4. Prior to the public hearing, I probably wouldn't have said that, but after sitting through the public hearing, people feel pretty strongly. So 3 or 4 would work for me.
Yeah, I think so too. Option 4 is mostly what I'm thinking.
So I will have some motions ready for you for the next meeting.
I'm sure the 4 other people that are not here today would probably, I would ask them too, but 3 and 4 is what I'm thinking.
I guess it'd be that also.
Works for me. Thank you. So I'll have that ready for you in 2 weeks.
Anything else on this topic?
Yeah.
No? Okay.
I'm all spent.
So number 2 and 3 are going to be held open?
Yep.
That's the car wash?
Mhm.
And I think we're okay to vote on 556 Maple Avenue. Anybody object to voting on that tonight?
No, that's,
Not really. He reads that, right?
You his motion, yeah.
Yep.
Okay, you have the motion?
Okay. Motion to approve application for a site plan approval on behalf of CREM Holdings LLC, applicant owner. Applicants requesting site plan approval for the proposed office for the property located at 556 Maple Avenue, Assessors Map 50, Lot 269, Zone R20A. Approvals based on plans titled Connecticut Realty Estate Management LLC, 556 Maple Avenue, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by SLR with a revision date of April 17th, 2023.
most that for you.
Mr. Dawson? Second by Mr. Salmat. Any discussion?
Can I just make a comment? I'd like to comment to the owner of the property, how great it was to see property owners around you and you working together to come to a resolution that works for everybody. I think oftentimes we sit here and, whether it's something we witness or something you hear kind of grumbling underneath, it's not always easy. We know people have different points of view, but it was just so great to see that, right here on the fly, you all were able to work it out for the good of both parties. And so I'm very appreciative of that.
Well said.
Any other discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining, passed unanimously. 7-0-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda, Ryan Giapietro, that's health.
Mike, we got to do we just got to do the special permit now too, because this is a site plan and special permit.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Motion to approve application for a site plan on behalf of CREM Holdings LLC, applicant owner. Applicants requesting special permit pursuant to Section 30, Schedule A, number 49 of the Cheshire zoning regulations for proposed office for the property located at 556 Maple Avenue, Assessors Map 50, Lot 269, Zone R20A. Approvals based on plans titled Connecticut Realty Estate Management LLC, 556 Maple Avenue, Cheshire, Connecticut, prepared by SLR with a revision date, and actually the revision date is changed to May 16th, 2023. The Cheshire Planning and Zoning Commission finds that based on the record and the applicant has demonstrated compliance to Section 30, Schedule A, Section 49 of the Cheshire zoning regulations. Approvals are subject to the following. One, fire department approved emergency key box will need to be installed and maintained at a location to be determined by the fire chief or his designee. Two, a freestanding sign is not to exceed 3 by 5 to be installed on the site. Sign is not to be lit.
Move staff wording.
Mr. Selma, Mr. Dawson, second. Any discussion? Okay, I'll say what Ms. Blake said earlier. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstaining, passed 7-0. Okay, next on the agenda, sorry, Brian Giampetro, thank you again. Brian Giampetro, that's postponed until June. Okay, and we have 2 new items of new business.
Yep, so you have a change of use on Industrial Avenue. It's a health exercise facility that's moving into the vacancy, which will be heard at your next meeting. And the other is a special permit for extension of patios, building addition, and some other minor site changes for 1410 Highland Avenue. That's the Butcher Brothers new restaurant, formerly Bone and Prime. The business was sold, new people came in, they're making some renovations. So they'll be at their next meeting.
Okay. Michael, do you have any kind of update on a couple properties? So the one over across from the shooting, what's the target? Fieldstone. The one turned into a quarry.
Oh, I've asked, I've asked Mike Strollo to follow up with now the property owner, because that was a temporary use that's not supposed to be a permanent.
On the corner of Fieldstone, I think I wasn't here for that. What was that supposed to be?
Supposed to be an office
Supposed to be
building.
office building.
Someone had mentioned storage units or something,
That's
but
across the street.
No, that's on the other side, yes.
okay. So that corner across from
But my agent
on
called me.
Fieldstone, on the corner is supposed to be an office building?
Not a quarry, yeah.
Because I thought they were just, I didn't know what they were doing. So.
The only key is that, just remember, with an approval, they have 5 years to complete the improvements, which could be extended up to 10 years. So Mike's going to check in with them and kind of ask them what's
Are
going
they
on.
actually bringing materials in and
They're processing stuff there. It's not
literally
it's
turned into
a
a
little,
quarry?
it's going above and beyond of site prep.
Right, because the site prep is taking materials on site, not bringing stuff in.
Right.
And do we have any update on the
It's more
daycare
of a
center?
Storage.
We have a meeting scheduled with them for next week.
Daycare center?
Across from Highland.
Yeah.
I'll give you an update after that.
Okay, anything else to come before us?
Nothing else.
Okay, entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Mr. Selmont, Mr. Dawson, all in favor?